talking is over. The time for action has come. One message has to emerge from here loud and clear. I'm sure there'll be many, but one has to emerge loud and clear today, because time is running out. Time is running out for the 3,300 brave, patriotic citizens, your brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters in seeking peace, democracy, a decent life. Time is running out for them. And it is time for the decision makers, the UN High Commission, Maliki, the Iranian regime, the Obama administration. It's really time for them to hear something that the people of Ashraf have to hear. And that is the time for words are over. The time for talking is over. The time for action has come. Let's make it clear that all of us here today stand with the people of Ashraf. We stand with them. We are not going to allow them to be oppressed. We are not going to allow them to be harmed. We are not going to allow them to be ignored. And we are not going to allow the UN, the Iranian regime, Maliki, or even the United States to stand by and watch them be forgotten. Because no matter what happens, we will stand up for them. We are with them as if we are in that camp with them today. Whatever they do to them, they do to us. We will stand up for them. Let's review some of the facts about this new camp that they want to move these wonderful people to. On Thursday, a UN team visited Ashraf, and it provided some information about what will go on at Camp Liberty. First of all, the camp is only 1/2 square kilometers with no buildings or facilities. 1/2 square kilometers. This is for 3,300 people that presently are housed in 36 square kilometers. 1/2 square kilometer, they're now in 36 square kilometers. That means they are going to be crowded in an inhumane, indecent way, in a way in which they are living on top of each other and unable to have any degree of privacy or decency or even the most basic human right to dignity of your own body. This is a horrible condition. What's the UN's response to it? UN's response to it is the UN's response to oppression, the UN's response to dictatorship, the UN's response to indignity and suffering. The UN's response for the last 40 years has been to ignore it. You think the UN's action with regard to Camp Ashraf and Camp Liberty is unusual? They're ignoring the fact that these people are going to live in 1 square kilometer. They're ignoring the fact that there's no drinking water in Camp Liberty. No drinking water. This seems like very surprising. They're ignoring the fact that when the people are moved to Camp Liberty, they will not be allowed to leave Camp Liberty. You know what that's called? I'm sure Judge Mukasey knows this. He was in charge of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. You know what that's called? That's called a prison. That's not a camp. That's a prison when you can't leave. UN's response to that is to ignore it. Don't be surprised. The UN has ignored all controversies like this, all cries for help, almost uniformly for the last 40 years. When a dictator, a tyrant, talks a little louder and frightens them, they respond to the dictator and the tyrant, not to the needs of ordinary people, decent people, people who are crying out for help. People in wheelchairs will not be able to get into the trailers. There's not a single road with asphalt in the camp. There's not a single piece of green area in the camp. Because it's so small, there wouldn't be any room for green areas. There's no room for people. The trailers don't have the most basic facilities. And the Iraqi government has refused to allow any of the residents to visit because they don't want them to see how terrible the conditions of their imprisonment are going to be when the Iraqis get a chance to put them in prison, which is what they are doing at the behest of Maliki and finally at the behest of the Iranian government. The UN has not objected to any of this. It's simply disgraceful for the UN to allow this to go forward. It's disgraceful for the UN to submit to the demands of a regime like Maliki's and ultimately to close its eyes to the fact that really what they're doing is submitting to the demands of the Iranian mullahs, and Maliki is just a puppet on a string doing the bidding of the Iranian mullahs. And it's outrageous for the UN to do this. But it's not unusual for the UN to do this. It should be ashamed of having that charter, which stands for some of the most beautiful and wonderful sentiments of the human spirit. And if it stands by now, it should be completely ashamed of itself. Maybe it can be shamed into acting. This is so simple. It's so easy. People at Ashraf were promised by the American government and ultimately by the Iraqi government they'd be dealt with humanely and decently. That's not so hard. We're in the 21st century. We're not in the Middle Ages. Not so hard to live up to that. It's not so hard to have the courage if you're the UN High Commissioner on Refugees. Yeah, not just Commissioner, but you're the High Commissioner. Not so hard to have the courage to stand up and say, it's inhumane, indecent, and unjust to take 3,300 people and put them in half a square kilometer. It's unjust not to give them bathroom facilities. It's unjust not to give them showers. This takes courage to do this? Or does it take just a teeny bit of human decency to do this? Like a teeny bit of human decency and just a little bit of bravery. Not much, just a little bit.